Okay, in this third and final installment of how to build a collaborative site through the new Google Sites, I'm going to finally show you how to take this template that we've previously built, and the template with the multi-pages that has the instructions in it. We're going to take this template, we're going to add it to our drive, and then we're going to push it out to specific classes. So to do that, you'd want to already have in mind who your groups are going to be. When I did this, I wrote my groups out on paper, and then I assigned each student an actual role. So they all worked together equally, and they decided to work amongst themselves. But as the students were working and as I was looking at the project, I put students in charge of specific jobs. So one student would be the fact finder, another student would be the editor, another student would be the designer. So if I was looking at a site while the students were working and I saw a specific issue with design, I knew I would talk to the design person and they'd go back to the group and discuss. If there was an issue with some editing that needed to be done, I would talk to the editor and they'd take that issue back to the group and discuss. So it just made it a little bit easy to manage each group if each student had a predefined role and if I knew what that role was. So I already decided who my groups were within each class, and then I figured out who would have the role within the group. And I gave them some freedom as far as the roles, but I did not give them the freedom in the groups. It's too big of a project and too much time spent for them to get into groups that could get them into trouble. Okay, so with that said, I am next going to make a new folder. So I'm going to call it American Revolution. Okay, created that folder, and there it is. So now I want to take this template here. So I'll right click on it, and I'm going to move it to my drive, and I'm going to find that folder that I just created, which is right here, and it's not cooperating. Let's do that again. So sorry, right click, move to my drive, American Revolution, and move it. Okay, so now it should be within that folder in my drive. There it is. Okay, now this is where it gets a little complicated. I want to make sure that this does not get changed. So I am going to make a copy of it. Okay, so I'll come down here and make a copy, and that takes a few seconds. So I'm actually going to make several copies while I'm waiting. Okay, and those will eventually appear. My copies will appear. But I'm going to create new folders. So I'm in that American Revolution project folder, but I'm going to create new folders. So let's say I'm making this project for 3 different classes. So I'm going to make a folder for each class. I'm just going to call it Period 1. Okay. I'm going to make a folder for Period 2. Excuse me. And then finally one for Period 3. Okay, and you can see those copies are coming up now, and each one says copy of, copy of. I'm going to take this first one and I'm going to rename it, and I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put a few stars. Okay, American Revolution template. I was going to say do not alter, because I have it the way I want it, and I want to make sure I don't accidentally change it, because I want to use this again in the future without having to do all the work again. So I'm going to keep that one and not touch it. But this one right here, this first copy, I'm going to move it into the Period 1 folder. I'm going to move one into the Period 2 folder, and I'm going to move one into the Period 3 folder. Okay, so just imagine you have a list of your groups written down on paper in front of you. So I'm going to look at my first period list that I created, and I have my student groups, and I'm going to make several more copies. So make a copy, make a copy. Let's pretend this is a small class, so I'll only have a few groups. Okay, so I'm going to now look at the group names that I have written on paper, and I'm going to rename this. So we're just going to call it Steve, Allie, Allie, and John. Okay, so that's one group. My copy should be coming up here anytime now. There we go. Okay, so I have Steve, Allie, and John's group. This is going to be another group, so I'm going to rename, and we're going to call it Kim, Tom, and Bob. And then here's another group. We'll say it's Ben, Bill, and Betty. And then finally my fourth group is going to be Matt, Mark, and Mary. Okay, so now what I would do, I have period 1. This is just my first class. I have 4 groups. Each group has 3 kids in it. When kids come to class, I would have to share these with those students. So what I would do is live in front of the students, I would right click on it and I'd go to share. And what I would do is put in the email addresses of those students. So you can see I put in Ben and names start to come up. The student's name would eventually appear. You might have to search for it, but you would find it. And let's just do this Ben. And what I would do is make sure Can Edit is chosen, and then I would click send. But I would have all 3 of the students in there. Okay, I'd have all 3 of the students in here and then send it to him. I'm not actually going to send it to him, but then that way you would be a collaborator on that site as well as these 3 students. So you'd have full access to see what they're doing. You could pull up the site and work side by side with them. You could pull up the site and put it up on your projector or TV and work with the group that way. But you would do the same for the next group. You would go in, right click, you would go to share, you would search for those students' names, you would make sure Can Edit is selected, and then done. Okay. All right, so that was just for period 1. For period 2, I would do the same. Open it up. I'd have to make several copies. So that's 1 copy, 2 copies, 3 copies, and they would eventually appear, just like we did for period 1. And then I could go back and do the same for period 3. A little time consuming, but the hard work will certainly pay off. Okay, that should be it. If you have any questions, if you're struggling with this, and if you can't figure out what to do based upon my videos, please don't hesitate to contact me, send me an email, or even give me a call, and we could find some common Tuesday time perhaps to meet up and work through your trouble. Also, I'm sure that your tech coach would be able to walk you through this process as well, if not better than I did through the videos. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully you'll be able to implement this in your classrooms. Take care. Bye-bye.